Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's had a great week out there as we cruise on to our weekend. We got a couple things to talk about in this morning's video, but all in all, this video won't be near as long as what the last several days worth of videos have been with breaking down that winter storm, this cold blast. Our attention pretty much goes towards figuring out what's next, and we'll speak on that for the first half of the video. We'll speak on what we're seeing out there in the longer range the last several days of February, the first several days of March. Of course, the further out we get, the less we know, the less detailed we can get. But we will speak on what we know in this video, talk about how we could have some more cold shots for the East. I think the West is in for a warm-up for the foreseeable future, and I think we're going to warm up across most of the country. But, of course, we're not done with winter quite yet, so we're getting later in the game for sure, but we could still get late-season winter storms. We could get all kinds of weather, so we're here to try to figure that one out. And as we get closer and we latch onto a storm system potentially, then, of course, we'll tunnel vision on it, and then we'll try to figure it out and forecast it. So we'll do that first, and then we'll talk about today's weather. But all in all, it's a pretty quiet day of weather across the entire lower 48 for your Friday. So that's always good. And I can tell you, I'm very happy it's slowing down. I'm ready for just a break. The two-a-days are great for growth, and it's awesome engaging with you guys and just talking about what I love with the weather. But, of course, you just need some rest periods, and I'm certainly looking forward to the rest period, at least while we have it, right? So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. And stay tuned if you want. Towards the end of the video, we will do a bit of a Bible devotion. We try to do that a few times a week, so we'll spend some time in the Word if you want to join us. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So this is the latest from the Climate Prediction Center. This is the 8 to 14 day outlook. This takes us from, I always forget, I always check it before the video, but then I forget, February 28th, the last day of the month, through March the 6th. So they're going for above average temperatures and these warmer colors, the orange and the darker orange and almost red colors right into here. The darker the orange, the more high confidence they have in above average temperatures. And you got the grayed out area where you can basically think of it like this. This is where they're going for around average temperatures for this time period of the year. They are leaning towards below average temperatures in the bluish colors. And the darker the blue, the higher confidence they have in below average temperatures. And I think that as we move through the next couple of days, maybe more areas of the East get covered up in blue. I just think we're going to have deep cold shots, but they're not going to be, from what I'm seeing, they're not going to be long duration spells of cold. I think that we could have some sharp cold fronts. It's really cold for a day or two, and then it warms right back up, and then maybe another one. That's the kind of pattern that I'm seeing going forward, but that could change, of course. We will have a new 3 to 4 week outlook issued later on this afternoon, so of course we'll take a look at that for tomorrow morning's video. Now, the precipitation outlook in the same time period, it looks to remain decently active across most of the country. So even though maybe there isn't any Arctic outbreaks we're seeing, and that could change, it looks like most of the lower 48, we continue to have shots at storm systems across the country. So what kind of storm systems will this be? Will this be just heavy rain events? Maybe some severe weather opportunities or winter storms? We're certainly going to continue to have winter weather threats. We're still in winter, even though it's starting to get kind of late in the season. It's certainly going to be cold enough for a lot of people to still get shots of winter weather. You folks up north know all about that. You know you can get winter weather well into April, depending on where you live. Heck, some areas even May. So we'll continue to watch this, but most of the country is leaning towards above average precipitation for that time period. So going forward and kind of looking at what we're seeing as far as model guides, we'll take a look at the Euro from overnight and then this morning's GFS. Is there any systems that we're working a little bit closer to that we can begin to focus a little bit more on? And this is the latest Euro, and we're going to start it off for Sunday afternoon, the 23rd, so here in the next couple of days. And we do have a storm system that's probably going to bring a soaker across areas of the western deep south. Louisiana could have a rainy Sunday, a good day for a Sunday afternoon nap for these areas. And this system will get kind of squashed or just weaken across the Gulf. And it will bring some rain, maybe even some storms Sunday night into Monday across like Florida. But as we move forward, a little clipper flies through across the Great Lakes, but there's a lot of warm air surging in. So for some areas, this will just be rain. Some snow up in Canada. We do have some a pretty consistent flow into the Pacific Northwest that will continue to bring rain, snow in the higher elevations. But for the most part, it's a pretty warm system, as you can tell with the blue and orange lines that the 540 line is surging pretty far up into Canada. So you can tell there's not a lot of cold air to work with, really anywhere across the country, as most of the lower 48 begins to warm up. Now we will have to watch this sucker right here. This looks like a big storm system well off the east coastline, but not really worrying about that too much right now. As we get into midway next week, there could be a piece of northern stream energy that doesn't have a lot of cold air to work with, so you're seeing a lot of green, which is rain, that kind of swings across the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes region. I mean, it's a sub 1,000 millibar low. Could be a powerful piece of energy from the north, and we'll watch that. And I do think that'll initiate a trough that will dive down. You can see that 540 line diving all the way down to the Gulf Coast line. And this will probably get things filling back into a winter feel to kind of wrap up the last couple of days of February as we're getting into next Thursday and Friday. Most model guidance agree with this trough digging down with some energy associated with it, but no real huge storm that you see with it. And here comes some energy shooting down, the sliding down with the trough, the northern stream energy, but not really connecting with any kind of southern stream energy. And this is a really big ridge flex across the western U.S., and it kind of reinforces another trough at day 10. And there could be a storm system between day 8 and 10 because of this just dip in the jet stream interacting with some moisture and just energy. And then that swings through, and who knows what happens after this. We get several days into March at this point. Here comes another system, but we're getting past 300 hours out, but it does show a more active pattern once we get a few days into March with a lot of energy cutting across the country. But nothing too crazy that I'm seeing. Now the GFS, the same thing. We'll look through it, and we'll get some moisture along the Gulf coastline over the next couple days into the weekend, early next week. And then we'll watch this clipper that does dive down. Normally the GFS likes these systems to be more colder, and sometimes it's right. GFS didn't do too bad with this last winter storm. The Euro led the way for a bit, and then the GFS sort of picked up the slack at the last 48 hours, and as the Euro really dried up for a lot of areas when it didn't end up being that dry with this last winter storm we just talked about. But here comes some energy shooting down into Canada. Who knows? That could be a high impact winter storm up there, but it definitely looks like a lot of rain. You can tell there's a cold front diving in with a low pressure popping off the base of this trough and ejecting around the eastern side of this trough and this dip in the jet. And cold air kind of funnels in for next weekend. I think it'll be another chilly weekend next weekend, like this weekend will be for a good chunk of the eastern U.S. And the GFS has this aggressive clipper next Friday, and some really cold air diving down. But I would say that the GFS keeps a lot of the super cold air bottled up pretty far to the north. Doesn't really dive it down pretty far south, as we get into the first evening of March. So it could keep the south maybe warmer. But here comes a system kind of swinging through past day 10. But I can sit here and go very far out, but at the end of the day, there's no point in getting too far out. And honestly, between now and the next week, guys, I think the rest of February, I don't see any powerful storm systems. I see a lot of northern stream energy diving in, but I see a ridge beginning to flex. And a lot of times that begins to cut off and separate the two streams from interacting. Therefore, you don't get a huge storm system. I think that could change towards around this time next week. So nothing too crazy that I'm seeing. I don't even have ensemble guidance pulled up for any snow or anything like that. But if you look at the pattern off the Euro ensemble, the blue is the lower pressure. The warmer colors you see on your screen, that's higher pressure. Blues, storm system, cold air that comes down with it, a dip in the jet, and then you got the ridging with the orange. So as you can tell, as we're getting into next week, I do think a ridge will warm a lot of the lower 48 up. Now, I do think this ridge hangs on a lot longer. In fact, just pretty much dominates the pattern in the western U.S. There's enough of a dip in the jet right into here to continue to bring storm systems into the Pacific Northwest. And forgive me for not having my cursor up where I can really draw on this. Didn't even think to pull it up. But as we're starting to get into early next week, there's that piece of northern stream energy that sort of dives down, swings in. Here's a little energy trapped in the ridge that will try to connect with this trough digging down. And this is where we could have, I don't think we're done figuring out the pattern at the end of next week. I think there's the potential for a stronger system than what's showing up on operational runs. But that is a tall spiking ridge with a pretty sharp dig in the trough, in the jets, indicating a trough of low pressure, the blue over the eastern U.S. This is going to bring a shot of cold air that wraps down here, gets pulled down from the north. Like this, and in fact, it's tearing my nerves up, so I'm going to get this where I can actually draw, so you guys bear with me. We got plenty of time. We're just cruising through this video nice and slow, so you can see the beautiful northern lights that I got off Lake Murray, my background here. So what's going on here is, let's draw on this. We got cold air diving down as this trough swings through, so we'll have a shot of cold air that dives into the eastern U.S. for next weekend. So another cold weekend for the eastern U.S. most likely. But if you keep this going, the big question is does this trough kind of reinforce itself right in here? So once again, you got the same similar look into Sunday. But, I mean, heck, by the time you're getting into early the next week, which is starting to get about 10 days out, over 10 days out, that could change. Another little ridge kind of flexes into here. Could warm you back up. But what I'm seeing here is still a negative EPO, which is I don't like that color, which is ridging up into Alaska, kind of some energy kind of diving into here. And I think we're about to get a big trough that digs down right into here, and we could set up some cross-polar flow. And there it is. Boom. This is pretty far out. This is getting into like several days into March. You get this wholesale cross-polar flow where you're getting a lot of cold air kind of shooting down here. How active would the storm track be? It looks like the Pacific is somewhat active with lower pressure kind of right into here and going through there. But where will all this cold drop? I think we're going to have a shot of really cold air several days into March. But we're just still trying to figure this one out. We got to work this 336-hour time frame into under the 300-hour time frame, and I think we will. But we just got to still figure this one out. But I do think that this is going to unleash some really cold air into the lower 48. And, I think that there's a possibility that we could get a powerful storm system with it. And maybe a winter storm for certain areas where I'm not quite sure. We're still not sure. But I do think something can happen as we're getting past March 6th into the March 10th time frame. So here it is, February the 21st. I am really watching March 6th through the 10th. That's my shot for the long range. Guys, I don't speak a whole lot on it, but I'm watching that time frame. Now, as far as the response of everything I just showed you, the dips in the jet, the blues, and the oranges and stuff I showed you on the screen, what does that mean as far as temperatures? Just remember, this is starting to get into late February, early March, so your average high and low temperatures are certainly much different, much higher than it is in January when we got all this cold air. So as we're starting to get into next week, this is this coming Monday, the 24th, most of the country is getting pretty much hit with Pacific air and just warmer air. But, could stay a little cooler in certain areas, but I think for the most part it stays warmer than average across most of the country. Now here comes this cold front. That same thing I just talked to you about for this week, for next week. And so this is next Friday morning, 180 hours out, 1 week out. Look how below average temperatures start to swing back in for the eastern U.S. Now, this isn't super cold temperatures by any means. I mean, we're starting to get into the last couple days of February, first couple days of March. But it's still pretty chilly. And, this could reinforce itself below average temperatures. Now, this is starting to get pretty chilly. It's like the March 1st, 2nd, we're getting 5 to as much as 15 degrees below average. Could get another warm up, and then watch at the tail end of this run as the entire country really cools down, and that's because we're just getting a lot of cold air dumped into the lower 48. But I think there's some disagreements on where this cold air dumps. Does it come down for... Rarely does it just unleash into the entire lower 48 all at once. It normally targets one specific half of the lower 48. Is it going to be more so the central U.S., the western U.S., central U.S., the eastern U.S.? I really am confident that it's going to come into the central U.S., but is it going to lean west? Is it going to lean east? I still think we need to figure that one out. MJO certainly supports, a cold next couple of weeks. And, we were tracking this over the last couple of weeks and how we were maneuvering through the warm phases. And, we got this winter storm. And just trying to explain this the best way I can. Now, this is February the 12th. This is phase 7, which is somewhat of a favorable phase, more so for the central U.S. for this time of the year. But this moved, this was a week ago, last Friday. And this kind of maneuvered into phase 8, which is a favorable phase for cold and even winter weather pretty far south in the winter. And sure enough, this is the February 18th, the 16th, 19th, 21st. So we're kind of hanging out right into here, phase 8 right now. That's why we're cold. That's why we just got this winter storm. It's a great connection. So it shows us kind of cruising through phase 1, which is still a favorable phase. And do we kind of loop back into what we call a null phase? What it's looking like to me is that we just hang out in these colder phases. Do we swing into phase 3? We hang out in these colder phases, which is phase 8, 1, 2, and 3. 2 and 3 are colder phases in March for sure. But I think that's why we're just going to have a hard time warming up and having an early spring as far as warm weather fans that love. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of overwintering myself, which is... I just think the older I get, the more I enjoy spring. I enjoy everything waking up. I appreciate it more. When I was younger, I wanted it to be winter all the time. And trust me, I think the older I get, the more I understand your folks in the north that, you can't shake winter until like May. But I love winter when it's wintertime. Like, especially December, January, and February. If we're going to get a freak March snowstorm, I'll take it. But, you start getting April, and it's still cold. Early May, it's still cold. Yeah, I don't know about all that. So, but I would still, for you folks, from my friends tuning in from the north, I would still move to the north over the south. And I know a lot of y'all are just laughing at me. But anyways, this is the latest on what's going on across the country. We continue to have some lake effect energy, and a little bit of northwest flow snow across the Appalachian Mountains, but it's not a big deal. You guys got rocked off areas of Lake Ontario over the last several days. It's kind of a storyline that didn't get talked about as much because of what was happening to your south, but certainly got buried. You guys let me know. It just doesn't seem like we've had crazy lake effect snows like in February, like we've seen this February over the last several years. And I'm assuming it's because we haven't had a lot of cold shots of air. But anyways, we got this little spin of snow going across Colorado. So a little bit of snow flying around even into western Kansas. And then we got a really warm storm cruising across the Pacific Northwest. And we do have some freezing drizzle. In fact, we got winter weather advisories in southern Texas right now. So maybe a little bit of freezing drizzle, maybe some flakes flying around down here. And in fact, looking at watches, warnings, and advisories, we do continue to have these cold weather advisories in this kind of whitish color. Some lingering winter weather advisories in North Carolina and even Virginia. I think they're just in North Carolina. This is for just a refreezing of snow and stuff like that. And there's those winter weather advisories kind of south of Brownsville, but southwest of Corpus Christi. So a little bit of freezing rain down there, and we continue to have these winter weather advisories and lake effect snow warnings near Erie. But these will expire over the next several hours. We do have some winter weather advisories across the Rockies of Montana and some flood watches up for the higher elevations of Idaho, Montana, even the Olympic Mountains. And that is because the rain we're going to get in this area, but I think it's because of some melting snow too. As far as, thunderstorms today, nothing to really pay attention to at all, and excessive rainfall today. Where is it? Right here. Not expecting anything too crazy. So the Southeast, beautiful day. We can just cruise on through this. There ain't really a whole lot to talk about. It's just a beautiful but cold day. It'll be cold. It'll cool off really fast at night again. So if you're going out on the town here in the South, definitely bundle up, get ready, because temperatures will drop like a rock, especially the further east you get in this area. The Northeast, same thing, guys. Not a whole lot to speak on. Hope you guys are doing well up here. It's just going to be cold, miserably cold, but it's pretty quiet. The lake effect snow machine's kind of cutting off, maybe some flurries drifting around. You know how y'all go. You know how y'all do up here, where, a lot of times on radar or on some of these short-range models, they don't show much, and then all of a sudden you end up getting a lot of scattered flurries and snow showers with the energy. But down here to the south-central U.S., maybe a wintry mix in certain areas of central Texas today. You could just get some sleet, maybe some freezing rain. I mean, you see some pink showing up down here. So the cloud cover and just some moisture, very shallow, cold air in central Texas could lead to a little bit of freezing drizzle on and off in central Texas today. I don't think it'll be a huge deal, but, if you're tuning in from that area, let me know what you're seeing. Everybody else is pretty quiet. The north central U.S., quiet weather. I mean, nothing to speak on. This evening, some energy. We'll try to dive in out of Canada. Might greet you guys with some morning snow showers up in northeast Minnesota and the western UP for tomorrow morning. But outside of that, everybody's pretty quiet. It's a quiet day of weather across the country, and it's much needed. That little bit of spin of snow in Colorado and Nebraska will weaken as we get into this afternoon, but we will get a surge of moisture that starts a pretty unsettled weekend of weather across the Pacific Northwest. This evening we'll get some rain, and the lower elevation is certainly too warm for any kind of winter weather in the valley. It's way too warm. Heck, it's even too warm for snow in a lot of areas of the Olympic Mountains, even the Cascades. But just a very warm system. We'll just get a soggy start to your weekend up here in Washington and Oregon. Temperatures today, cold day expected. I mean, even chilly now in Florida, sub-freezing temperatures once you get into the northern Mid-South, the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and the Northeast. Some areas won't get out to single digits. You're waking up to some low teens, even some single digits in the southern Appalachian Mountains. I mean, it's a cold morning for late February standards for sure. But it's February, and I keep trying to remember that. I mean, gosh, look how cold it is for high temperatures, even all the way down to northern Mexico. But I can't remember, guys. I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, we've not really had winter in February lately for a lot of areas, especially for the eastern U.S. and the southeast. And then here's high temperatures out west. Some chilly conditions, but all in all, the further west you get, the warmer it gets. I mean, you got to get on up there to get snow. So just to get in the Word a little bit this morning with our Bible devotion, I haven't been doing this very long the last few weeks, so hopefully as I continue to do this, it becomes a lot more smooth and we don't have any more hiccups and we can just roll through this. But I think this is a good opportunity for me to grow as a follower of Christ, and it's a good opportunity for me to use my platform to glorify God, and for you guys to hear the Word, for me to talk in the Word, and for all of us to just understand it. So I hope that makes sense. So this morning we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 through 10. Now we have this treasure in clay jars, so that this extraordinary power may be from God and not from us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We are persecuted, but not abandoned. We are struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry the death of Jesus in our body, so that the life of Jesus may also be displayed in our body. So, when I was reading that, it took a good 5-10 minutes for me to completely understand it. And the way I view that is, we go through some very difficult times in life, and I think we bend, but we don't break, and we're supposed to lean on God's strength during those times. And we are easily broken by the world, right? Bad things happen, they come, they knock us on our butt, and we are called to get back up, and we are called to draw from God's strength. And I think that it's referencing the jar of clay to point out our weaknesses without God. And I think that we need to continue to lean on Him during those difficult times, during the times of struggle. And as we do, we'll grow, our faith will grow, and he will be glorified through it. That's the thing is I think a lot of people, and I've been there, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'll never say something like this again. But a lot of times we wonder and we ask God, we question God. We're like, why is this happening to me? Why are you allowing this to happen to me? And there's a lot of things that I don't think we'll quite understand until we're on the other side. And I think that it's important to know that I think personally that God allows things to happen to us for us to grow, for him to be glorified through it, through your struggle, and just for you to pull through that struggle that you're going through. So ultimately he can be glorified through your struggle, because we're called to come out on the other side of that struggle, right? So we're weak. He's strong. He needs to be glorified. And we will continue to do that. So hope that makes sense. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful Friday. And we'll continue to get a lot more smooth with that going forward. God bless all y'all. And we'll talk to you again in the morning.